The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. When the Pharisees, with some scribes who had come from Jerusalem, gathered around Jesus, they observed that some of the disciples ate their meals with unclean, that is, unwashed hands. For the Pharisees, and in fact all Jews, do not eat without carefully washing their hands, keeping the tradition of the elders, and on coming from the marketplace, they do not eat without purifying themselves. And there are many other things that they have traditionally observed, the purification of cups and jugs and kettles and beds. So the Pharisees and scribes question him, "Why do your disciples not follow the tradition of the elders, but instead eat a meal with unclean hands?" He responded, "Well did Isaiah prophesy about you hypocrites, as it is written, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines human precepts. You disregard God's commandment, but cling to human tradition." He went on to say, "How well you have set aside the commandment of God in order to uphold your tradition. For Moses said, 'Honor your father and your mother,' and whoever curses father or mother shall die. Yet you say, if someone says to father or mother, 'Any support you might have had from me is korban,' meaning dedicated to God, you allow him to do nothing more for his father or mother. You nullify the word of God in favor of your tradition that you have handed on, and you do many such things." The Gospel of the Lord. I think a little more than 10 years ago, I forget the exact year, but I had the privilege of attending one of the Society of Jesus' general congregations in Rome, General Congregation 35, where Jesuits from all over the world come for 2 months. Usually congregations are called when a Father General dies or more recently has to retire for health reasons. And this one was called to replace Father Kolvenbach, who had asked to retire because of his age and his illness. But of course, when you get a bunch of Jesuits together, they're not just going to do that. They feel an obligation to speak and to share their thoughts with other Jesuits and with the world. So at congregations, generally every time they write a bunch of documents that then promulgate throughout the world. And sometimes those documents are very good and very powerful, and sometimes maybe we could have done without them. But one of the documents that was produced at General 35 was about the challenges of our mission today. And it's very appropriate for the readings today because the congregation, I think, was seeing the future, seeing the present at the time, but now seeing well into the future. And the call of that document was to define the mission of the Society of Jesus, of the Jesuits, and our works as a call to reconciliation. And it was very specific. Reconciliation of all of us with God, first of all. Reconciliation of all of us with each other. And finally, reconciliation of all of us with creation, with the planet. And I was thinking about that document today as we read our readings. This beautiful, I'm always moved by the creation story. I studied in the ancient past. I did my master's degree in population and evolutionary biology, and I find this, that I identify so much with the beauty of this description of the gift of creation and how it unfolds from the mind and the hand of God. And then how God, some might say in a bad idea, hands it all over to us as his image and likeness and says, "Hey, it's all for you. Take care of it. Use it. Use it to be you, to multiply, to grow, to thrive. But take care of it. You have power over it." And so I hear in the congregation a call for us to do that, to steward this creation. We hear it echoed all the time in the papacy of Pope Francis, who's constantly calling us to an awareness of our responsibility to steward this creation. But he also echoes the other items of that document, certainly of reconciliation with God, but strongly of reconciliation, not only with the planet, but with each other, of calling us to a greater, first of all in the church, to a greater welcoming and a greater inclusivity in our own church. But he's constantly calling us to a reconciliation between peoples of the planet, for a call for us to stand not against each other, but in solidarity with each other, to set aside our differences and to try to work together for the good of every human person, for the good of the planet. And it is in doing these things that we ultimately reconcile ourselves with God, who trusted us with these gifts, the gifts of the planet, the gift of ourselves, and the gift of each other. And so we're reminded, we hear the words of Jesus condemning the Pharisees, who put a self-satisfying law above the obligation to love. And what I hear in the reading from Genesis and in Jesus' words is what his call is. It's a call to reconciliation, but it's a call to gentleness. It's a call to gentleness with the creation around us. It's a call to gentleness with each other. It's a call to love not out of obligation. The Pharisees find a way of obliging themselves not to love, not to be reconciled. And that's why Jesus condemns that use of the law, not the law itself, but the self-serving use. They don't want to love. They don't want to be gentle with their parents. And so that's the call I hear this morning for us to be aware as we walk through our life, as we walk through this planet, as we interact with each other, the call for gentle care of our world and each other.